I'm Christina C. Brennan. I'm a stand-up comedian and a former corporate communication consultant. And besides doing comedy all the time, also really love basketball and am a big believer in the self-development, self-growth space. So I'm usually in some sort of coaching or accountability group or something along those lines. One of those hippy dippy chicks that wears crystals and stuff.
Question one, what do you want to hold on to forever?
Ooh, I want to hold on to forever my like giving spirit, like my generosity. I hope I don't ever become somebody who's not generous.
Question two, when would you have liked a second chance?
Oh man, a second. I like to have the concept of, no regrets, but if I could have a second chance, I think around the age 14, like high school.
Cool. Question three, what challenges inspire your resilience? What challenges inspired moments of creativity?
Um, Interesting. I think they might go hand in hand, the resilience and creativity. I immediately jump to like low points with money, right? Like, oh my gosh, how am I going to do this? And had to get creative um, to put like money together. Um, I would also say one of the greatest challenges I had was leaving, like, excuse me, one of the greatest challenges I had was leaving a 12-year relationship. It was a really big life altering decision. And that really required like me basically starting over with everything. Um, so that required a lot of resilience, and I'm still actually like in those building phases. I've got my office set up in the laundry room. So
Yes.
it just, yeah, shuffling money around. I'm a stand-up comedian, so that requires a lot of resilience and creativity. Um, get invited to a show out in Albuquerque. How am I going to make it work? I still don't know. It's in 2 weeks. So we're getting creative with Patreons and ways to make money. That's where my brain keeps going. Is like every time I've been in a pinch zone, I'm like, how am I going to do this? I always find a way. So
That's great. Question four, what are illusions in your life?
illusions in my life. I think the biggest one is that I'm working through right now is that the illusion that I can't make like a full-time income, like a comfortable living off of comedy and my creativity. Um, I've got all these other skills, and I'm like, those are more practical, tangible skills to the world. And so finding this like idea of market value for my creativity, I'm like, no, I have a lot of imposter syndrome around that. So I would consider that like an illusion. Um, yeah, a lot of just worthiness stuff within myself probably are the biggest illusions right now. I'm pretty sure if I get past those, everything else will probably dissipate as well. Um, yeah, this like I can't thing I think is the biggest illusion.
Question five, what have you reassessed in your life and what did you decide to do differently?
Um, I reassessed. So I think that relationship was probably a big one. I had this whole like life plan, right? You have a life partner, you're like you have goals, financial and whatnot all together. And so it took like a couple years to like really come to the decision of, and separation and stuff included of like, okay, what do I really, really want to do for me that doesn't include me in relationship to somebody else? Like, who am I and what am I supposed to be doing when I'm not somebody's partner or daughter or whatever? Um, and so that required just like a lot of like inner work, and I was in some different like coaching programs and stuff that really helped me. And I basically just had to make the choice. I kind of downgraded my lifestyle in quite a few ways. Bought an old used car that I just paid off, paid cash for. Renting a room in a basement, like just completely had to downgrade this quality of life in a sense in order to like choose myself and move forward in that.
You can see yourself more now, right?
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah. Question 6. What deflates you and what gives you hope?
Hmm. What deflates me? I think all the constant exposure to like the world events like war and such really deflates me sometimes. It can be very heavy. Because you just feel like you can't help, you can't really like what can I do about it, but you can't unsee it either. So it's like this weird internal like mental battle sometimes. That can be a little deflating. Um, what gives me hope is just the small like acts of humanity and stuff like that. Lots of times from the young people, I actually teach driver's ed part time. And so I'm around 15 and 16-year-olds a lot. And not every single one of them, but a lot of them, just their outlook and their like freshness and innocence still, but they're also like, approaching adulthood. So they still have opinions and whatnot. And so getting to experience that in in the art spaces and stuff. I'm also around younger people, and so I young people give me hope.
Got it. Cool. Question 7. How have you evolved and how have you not evolved?
Ooh, how have I evolved? I want to say I've evolved a lot with like my self-awareness and trying to be the type of person that responds versus reacts. Try to carry that into different areas of life. Um, I would say there are some themes though where it's like you think you're evolving and then you kind of like retreat back. And one of the biggest ones for me is defensiveness. I have this like it's almost like a primal need to like defend myself if I feel like somebody's misrepresenting me or misunderstanding me, which you could imagine in comedy is probably not helpful.
Tough.
Um, yeah, I think that, am I answering your questions fully enough, by the way?
Perfect.
Okay, great.
Absolutely perfect. Yeah. Question 8. What do you wish you knew earlier in life? And what have you learned now that you could never have learned at a younger age?
Hmm. I wish that let's see, when I'm just thinking back to that like second chance phase around like high school, like I wish that I knew that like nothing's really that important. I know that sounds funny, but like the pressure that I put on myself in like my teen years is so funny when you look back and connect the dots. It's like you didn't need any of that. You still could have done that. You still could have done that. Like I graduated like 13th in my class in high school, and because I wanted to play basketball, I ended up going to a junior college. I didn't
Oh, so
need
you didn't need all those grades.
I didn't need all those grades. I didn't need all those extracurriculars. I didn't need all of those AP tests. And, some of it's still good. You should still challenge yourself. I wouldn't like go backwards and just be like a complete bum. But the pressure would definitely be different. I think I would have made different decisions and moved a little differently in the world through those things and like choosing majors and stuff like that in college. I think that would have just had like a fun ripple effect for me. Um, yeah, and yeah, anxiety, probably a slightly better health system here. But what was the second part of the question?
What have you learned now that you could never have learned at a younger age?
Ooh, it might be the same thing, honestly, because it's one of those things like you have to look back, but for sake of another answer, um, I think there's things that I've learned about relationships, romantic and otherwise, but particularly having been in like a very long-term serious relationship. I just learned a lot about how to like relate with people and compromise and just things that I don't think you can learn at a young age because you're living with your parents. There's certain like structures around. You don't have the freedom to explore. And so I think that, yeah, I've learned a lot about who I am in relation to other people and like how I relate to people that I just, it takes experience in the real world to learn those lessons. And so it's not something that like if somebody would have explained it to me, I'd have been like, okay, that sounds cool for you. I still have to go do it for me.
Yeah, great. Question 9. What early life experiences limit your ability to see what is possible?
I think growing up like poor and my parents are split up, so like kind of going back and forth and stuff like that. Really, there was always talks about like money and stuff like that. Like I remember one time I had a tooth that was messed up and I didn't tell anybody about it until it got like super painful, and they'd like pull my tooth and I was like 9. And my mom's like, why wouldn't you tell us about this? And I'm like, because I know we don't have money. Um, and so that just, I think, I'm getting emotional, sorry. I think it just kind of started this pattern of like lack or insecurity versus abundance and possibility.
Yeah. Question 10. When do you seek certainty and how do you handle uncertainty?
I I think I seek certainty a lot. Um, I like to be sure of things and like, especially if I'm going to speak on something, like I want to make sure I'm sure and I'm certain about what I'm speaking on. Um, and then seeking uncertain. I don't know if I've ever intentionally sought out uncertainty. I think I leave room for it, but I don't know if I've ever sought it out. And I leave room for uncertainty, especially around comedy and writing. That I wrote this joke this way, but I leave a lot of room for, okay, now I'm going to go deliver it and see what might happen. So I leave some room for that. And I always say I'm a go with the flow person once I'm in the flow. So I'm okay with like, okay, we're gonna go out and just bar hop or whatever. Sure, fine. Some uncertainty for the evening. But with that being said, if you just called me last minute and invited me out to go do some random things, I'd be like, no. So I leave room for it, but it's not, I don't think something I actually seek.
Yeah. Question 11. What mistake do you make over and over again?
The first thing that popped up, a mistake that I make over and over again, is estimating how long tasks will take me.
Yeah,
I swear I'm gonna be out the door by 4 o'clock and it's 4:37, and I'm like, okay, cool. So yeah, that's a big one for me.
yeah. Question 12. When do you take a metaphorical bow?
Metaphorical bow. The first thing that popped up is I'm thinking like the bow on stage, right? And so when I'm right, I would say kind of like a I told you so metaphorical
Yes.
bow, like um yeah, that's probably the most common one
That's a great
for
answer.
me.
Question 13. What smell brings you back to a special moment in your past?
What smell? Mm, I'm I'm like it's the smell of my grandma's house. I don't know how to describe the smell though. Log cabin, so very like woodsy kind of like that like old smell. I don't even know how to describe it.
Old
I'm gonna
woodsy
say it's like
smell. I have a sense of
yeah,
that.
an old woodsy, leathery kind of smell.
Yeah.
Yeah. We used to go hang out with my grandma in the summers and she had like horses and peacocks and chickens and
Oh, it's great.
had to pick green beans and do all sorts of fun stuff.
It's awesome.
Yeah, good time.
Question 14. What problems do you have now that you, sorry, question 14. What problems do you have now that are the same problems you have had for your whole life?
Um, we've touched on time management. um, I would say I also have a problem of like wanting to control the situation, and I think I've spoken this a little bit already of how I'm perceived. So sometimes I have I guess I would say like a recurring problem, whether it's in personal or professional settings, is wanting to control the narrative and having a hard time giving up that control.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Question 15. When have you encountered revisionist history?
Ooh. Um, the first example that popped into my head for revisionist history is I remember getting in an argument with my dad, and he said that the United States was the first country to free the slaves, and
That's
we were like the last country. And so whoever had taught him that, though, like he believed it, and so that was like probably my first like memory of that. Anyway, that was a long time ago. Um, I think yeah, that's probably like the most tangible example in my face. And then I think just something that's affecting me personally that feels kind of like revisionist history is um, with the current changes with reproductive rights and stuff. It's just things being rolled back, and same thing with different voter suppression laws and whatnot. There's this weird like politics of like, not that I don't know how much revisionist history is being used as a tactic, but there's like this sliding backwards. Um, And so I wonder how much of the narrative is this like the good old days narrative and stuff like that. I think yeah, it's a
Yeah.
lot in the political. That's what comes up to me when I hear that term is politics for sure.
Yeah, the good old days is a very common uh, version of revising old history to bring back old laws, for sure.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. Question 16. What story do you want to be remembered by?
Oh gosh, I hope I live so long that there are much cooler answers in the future. Um, but right now, I would want to be remembered as somebody who had the guts to quit corporate life and pursue stand-up comedy.
Out to you. Beautiful. Question 17. When did you start needing outside input to validate your inner experience?
Um, I mean, probably as a baby, you like you learn to clap and stuff for validation, right? Um, but what's like a tangible memory for me? I remember when I moved to Colorado, like I really wanted to be seen as like the funny kid. And so I was like,
Ah,
okay, I use like self-deprecation and stuff as a coping mechanism, and if people laugh at it, then that makes it all worth it, kind of thing. Like okay, that means I'm handling this in the right way because people are receiving me well.
yeah. Good answer. Can relate to that. Sometimes the easiest comedy is self-deprecation to get the outside thing. And right, it's like,
Weird.
yeah.
It is weird. It's like okay, if I cope with this in a way that I'm not hurting still, yeah.
Question 18. What depths have you descended to and how did you bounce back?
the first memory that's popping up, I was in a pretty deep depression my third year of college. I had went to this small town in Montana. I was on the basketball team, and then I ended up getting in trouble and not on the basketball team anymore. Um, and that was the year after like I had gotten hurt, and so I was already having this like, who am I without basketball kind of like crisis and stuff like that. And yeah, there's just a pretty solid spiral around that time. And I knew that like for me the most important thing was like getting out of that environment. Like I took my finals early so I could leave school early and like go back to my parents' house and regroup. So the big piece was the change of environment as quickly as possible. Um, and then yeah, it's interesting how
Yeah,
trickle
like
effect of all of that, but
sometimes you just need to get out.
yeah. And that's been true a couple of times. One time I went to Miami. It was an open-ended situation to stay with my friend for a couple of weeks, and I stayed for like 5 weeks because I was like, "There's no reason to go back." Get out of there.
Question 19. What decisions did you make in your life that served you in the past that no longer serve you?
I think I made a lot of decisions simply out of like obedience and just wanting to be seen as like the good kid or the good employee. Um, yeah, just kind of falling in line essentially, even if I didn't think it was the most ethical route or the most efficient route or whatever it might be. There's plenty of times I just was like, okay, I'll accept this because you're the authority or whatever it might be, or person that I'm trying to impress. And the older I get, and then especially stepping into this comedy situation, just the more I realize. Somebody even said to me today, as we were working on like some messaging stuff, was like, you need to have the courage to be disliked.
Yeah.
And so I can still, I guess I'm, this is something I'm currently going through is like, I need to realize that being likable isn't more important than like being 100% me, and conforming for safety because that's not sustainable safety.
Deep stuff. Question 20. What tiny change had a major impact?
Tiny change that had a major impact.
And people sometimes struggle with this one. It could be also what major change had a major impact.
Fair enough. Um, I think the first thing that came up honestly was my gratitude practice. It's something that I've done almost every single day for the past 7, 8 years.
Oh, wow.
Or yeah, getting pretty deep into that. And so it's a tiny thing, but the I think the key to it though is the consistency and it becoming more of like a part of my life. And I whisper thank you over my food and like the same way like some people might pray over their food and stuff like that. Um, and I make sure to express gratitude to other people very much so. So I think that's probably like making that an intentional, consistent habit of gratitude has probably been like the tiniest thing that's had like this bigger impact in my life. I've definitely have better mental health. I've manifested and brought in, achieved a lot of things. So yeah.
Question 21. What wave took you for a ride?
I think the most recent bumpy wave, or one of the most recent bumpy waves, last summer I was staying with my mom, and that was no longer an option. So I moved out and was pretty much homeless, living out of my car, crashing on couches, doing the couch surfing thing for about 4.5, 5 months. And that was a pretty wild ride. I was doing comedy 6 nights a week, So then that led to like drinking a lot more, making some interesting decisions. We've got some funny jokes out of it, but it was just like it was really like a wave and like that crashing feeling of like, okay, I was like trying to find housing and figure out a situation that would work for me and my budget. And every time something like tried to like form, it just like went away. I moved into an apartment. 3 weeks later, we had to evacuate because of asbestos spillage. Had bought a bunch of furniture from the Goodwill and stuff, and now all that's gone. So I'm like starting over from scratch with furniture again, and just like I guess it was multiple waves, but a series of
I
waves.
was thinking there's
I
multiple
was
ways.
like, the first wave was the living out of my car. And what was the second half of the question?
Uh, that's it. What
Okay,
you, yeah, but it
okay.
it became two questions like, well, how did you handle the second wave? And which you,
Yeah, I guess the how you handle it is the not giving up. You just keep getting back up. Don't let the waves pull you all the way under.
yeah. Question 22. What do you never want to forget, and what have you tried to forget?
Um, Man, out like I think part of this is the controlling thing with me, but I don't want to forget anything, honestly. Uh, it's they say like like your mind is like the one thing that they can't take kind of thing, right? Like they can't take your mind, and so it's like yeah, I don't want to not have access to that with like any of it. But I also know that the way our memories work isn't like a video recorder either, so that's a whole nother layer too of like memories and such. So I've definitely suppressed things. I have a friend that year that I was in Montana for school and did not like it. She'll remind me of stories and she's like, yeah, you were there and you had this and that. And sometimes it'll come back to me, but sometimes I'm just like, I believe you that I was there, but I have zero recollection of it.
Wow.
And I've told people compliment me on my memory because I'm pretty good at remembering names or like, yeah, we talked about whatever game or something, right? They're like, oh, good memory. And I'm like, I know. But there's some things that I guess my subconscious is like, too much trauma. You can just tuck that away.
Question 23. When has your inner experience eluded your understanding?
I think this kind of goes back to me being kind of a defensive person. Um, the inner story of like what somebody's tone or facial expression might mean. Like we come up with this internal story of like why is somebody treating us this way, and that might not be their intention. Um, and so I think that's definitely like impacted relationships because it's like I'm kind of like, why would you treat me this way, And then it causes me to go into this defensive mode where I can be a little mean and a little harsh. Um, and so I think that little piece definitely does not bring out the best in me.
Question 24. When has history repeated itself in your life?
History repeating itself. I going back to the like money struggles and stuff like that, and always, wanting to make sure I have enough. Sometimes I just have taken the first like job or first opportunity that came, and I get into this like situation that's like, I don't really want this because I just didn't take the time to like trust that the right thing would come to me. I just go for the first thing, um, which is true with the apartment housing situation, right? Okay, cool. I can afford that. Let's go. Didn't really look into too much more about that place. So, um, yeah, this like out of scarcity, reaching for the first option instead of taking my time.
Yeah. 25. What are the footprints that show you what life was like during the years you don't remember?
I think some of the markers of those years I don't remember, is how empathetic I
Ah, well,
am. This like desire to, I think, be understood makes me want to give people that back, and I want to understand how they feel, and I just kind of also inherently feel it as well, which can be tough sometimes. Um, yeah, because what's piecing that together for me is how I had to move around a lot as a kid and stuff, and how easily I was able to make friends in new places and pretty much walk into any room, Columbia Tower in Seattle with the rich, country club people, or go do a direct action in the streets with homeless people. Like, I think that there had to be some stuff in those early years that like made me this person that's like open and empathetic.
beautiful answer. Question 26. When in your life did you hear your heart beat?
The first memory that popped up is I dislocated my shoulder playing basketball my sophomore year of college. And what happened, I was going for a rebound. The girl grabbed my arm instead of the ball, and like just the angle and the way she pulled on it just like popped it right out of socket. I fell to the ground, and I'm like laying on this side, and I look down and I can just see my collarbone like sticking out. Quite the vision. And like, yeah, I just had the memory of it, which is weird again. It's like just like that blood rush to your head and that like thumping. Um, and I just remember looking at the trainer, like, are you gonna come help me? But they hadn't stopped the game because they didn't realize I was hurt.
Ah,
Just kind of insane because like why would I be on the ground that long?
yeah,
Like how much of a punk do you think I am? But yeah, he's like I can't, because he's like, he can't come on the court until they blow the whistle. So finally they're like, oh, this girl's not getting off the ground. And but yeah, that's the only time I think I have like this like memory of hearing my heartbeat.
yeah. Question 27. When have you waited erroneously?
And have I what erroneously?
Waited.
Waited. Oh, like waiting in vain kind of thing.
Waiting in vain? When you'd wait in vain, it's not the way to say it. Yeah. Well, waiting in vain, and in retrospect, it maybe was not such a great idea to wait. So, waiting in vain,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, okay. So chose to wait. Okay. Um, I teeter totter with this all the time. I feel like I should have started comedy earlier. I kept like putting it off, like pandemic happened and all this stuff. And it's one of those things you just have to get your chops in. So it's like I should have started sooner, but I also have an argument for not starting sooner. So I think just in general, waiting to ask, whether it's, for people to join my Patreon or to follow me on Instagram. People walk up to me after a show and tell me I'm funny, like just waiting to ask, and then it's like the window goes away.
Right.
And so that's something that I think's been obvious of like, yeah, why
Better,
are we
yeah,
delayed?
right.
Yeah, it's like it's right here, and then you let it go over there, and now it's like, oh, I should have. I've done a lot of. I should have reached out to this comedian. I should have. And it's just like you wait, and then it's like, oh, it's too late now.
Yeah. Almost always. Sometimes it's still,
Yeah, some doors can still be reopened, but
yeah, sometimes it's gone.
yeah.
Question 29. When are you on emotional alert?
I am pretty much always on emotional alert when I'm around people like that I care about. Like if I'm just in, like, I don't really care about like comedians' opinions of me and stuff like that. So it's like whatever, those guys. But if I'm in like with my boyfriend or talking to my roommate or something, like then I'm like really like, okay, I'm aware of my emotions and theirs, because like again, because of who I am, I don't want to step on somebody else's like bad day or something like that, right? So I might hold back certain information or news if I can just get a sense that something might be off. It's like, you don't need to do that right now. So I always try to be really, really aware. Uh, with other people that I care about.
Question 30. What sound awakens your soul? What thought jolts you to action?
Hmm. Ooh, sounds that awaken the soul. That's interesting. I love music so much, so it's like there's so many sounds in that regard. It might sound corny to say, but laughter.
That's not corny at all. It's wonderful. No,
Yeah.
not corny to me.
Part of it is, yeah, part of it that feels a little bit like an ego thing because like I'm, seeking laughs. But in general, yeah, there's just something intangible right here when people are laughing, especially if I'm the one who made them laugh. But in general, it's cool to see people having a good time. And then, can you ask me the second part again?
Yeah, what thought jolts you to action?
Mm. Usually, when I get an idea about a project or like an event or something that I want to do, and I get some sort of like reassurance from somebody else, like I could tell them my idea, or I share the idea, and then I get just even like a little bit of like, yeah, that's a good idea. I'm like, boom, go save the Instagram handle. I did that today. Like I was like, all right, we're gonna do this thing called the place to be. So I got to figure out an Instagram handle for it. It may or may not happen. I don't know, but I did something because
It
two people
jolts.
told me it sounds like a good idea, so that I must do it now.
That's great. 31. When do your unconscious intentions take over your conscious intention?
I think heightened emotions and situations of conflict. I'm very conflict avoidant, and it's almost like my head goes underwater type of thing. Like when I'm being faced with like conflict, especially with like my partner or something like that, it's like I can't process what's happening right now. It's I think a lot of the unconscious, subconscious type stuff starts to kick in, and the negative stories and the just the not enoughness and all of that really kicks in those moments.
Question 32. What would one day completely unrepressed look like to you?
Ooh, a good day, that's for sure. I think if I were completely unrepressed, probably wear less clothes in the summer. Lots of body shaming in the famine society. Although that's shifting a lot as well. But I think I would look really lazy to a lot of people. I would do a lot of things that just look like lounging because I feel like that I should have easeful days, and that's where a lot of my creativity comes from is just having time to sit back and actually reflect on the things that have happened in life. And when I think about what represses me, it's the you have to. You have to go to work. You have to do this. You have to show up for the family for this event. You have to, you have to, you have to. So yeah, I think unrepressed me just was saying no a lot more and
Wow.
being versus doing.
Beautiful answer. Question 33. What prevents you from being fully present when you're not present, loving and caring?
I think what causes me to not be present is worrying about the future, right? It's usually the to-do list is running in the back of the head. I just got a notification, right? Like there's there's it's like, oh gosh, I gotta do that now. I gotta there's the to-do list um in the head, and it's like, or it's like looking at the clock, like, okay, we only have till this much time. And so then it's like my brain goes into this like planning mode of what's next versus being right here.
Question 34 has three parts. Which belief, which beliefs empower your life? Which beliefs are limiting? And what would you have to believe in order to achieve what you want to achieve?
Beliefs that empower my life is that I believe that my purpose is being a stand-up comedian, and that I deserve the time and space to explore this career path. Um, the limiting beliefs is kind of, the opposite of that, that what I'm doing isn't important enough. It's, if this is should be a hobby, not something I'm pursuing full time. Like I should be working a job where I make six figures and like investing and doing all these other things, and then comedy could be a side hobby. Like that's the limiting stuff around money. And I think what I need to do to like bridge that gap essentially is more like clearing out the conditioning and the programming that says that I can't have this. Um, I think some of it's like, time and like getting some successful benchmarks as well in terms of the tangible. But I think most of it is doing the belief work, the shadow work, the stuff that we run from because we don't have time. Um, I've got some tools and stuff from different coaches and mentors, and so I think discipline and consistency is what I need to really embody those empowering beliefs.
Yeah. Question 36. What are you unlearning?
Um, I'm unlearning that I have to work hard to make money and or resources that I need. Like the idea that I have to work hard and like labor.
Question 38. When do your thoughts guide you in the wrong direction?
I think my thoughts guide me in the wrong direction probably when I'm stressed out. I start to spiral, and the what ifs become the negative what ifs instead of the positive what ifs. And those are usually around money stresses. Yeah, it's usually some sort of bill comes in the mail or a reminder thing, or somebody says something about being not being able to pay that. And I'm like, oh yeah, I need to pay that. How am I going to do that?
Question 39. What are you unconsciously attracted to because you are not clear about what you really want?
But I'm laughing because I have a joke about how when I was sad last summer and all homeless and whatnot, I was attracting a lot of married men.
That's funny.
It was bad, but literally so many of them.
I don't know why that's funny, but it made me laugh. I can't usually I could track the joke, but I don't know why, but it's really funny.
It's just kind of a funny sentence out of context. Like I went through this phase last summer where I was attracting married men. Like I know you can judge me. Then the joke just gets grosser. But I think that in that case it was like my emotional unavailability was attracting people who are emotionally or otherwise unavailable.
It's very funny. That's a great joke. That's awesome.
And it's so true. There's so many
I
of
listen to
them.
a lot of comedy, by the way. To me, that's a A plus, you know, that's a
Premise.
yeah, that's phenomenal. It's hard to get me to just burst like that. It was so funny, I didn't even know why it was funny, you know. Who? What?
Thank you. I
Yeah,
appreciate
awesome.
that. I will keep working on that joke. Um, they're never done. Um, but yeah, I would say that there's like a mirroring of energy, and when you're like in a specific mood, I also think about even some of the comedians that I'm hanging out with and stuff. When I was in that like lower vibration mindset where I was just like kind of down on myself and not doing as much of the affirmations and stuff like that. I kind of just hung out with comedians who just weren't good for me, you know? I just ended
Yeah.
up kind of being attracted to those people. It's like, yeah, let's do this. Went on a road trip with these people to Chicago. It was a terrible decision. um, so yeah, I think I definitely it comes out in like when my energy and my vibrations low, I attract those people, and then that's usually not the greatest mix.
Right, right, right. I'll send, I don't know if I sent you the book, but there's a book of fire, a forest fire that accompanies this question. And
Oh, okay.
yeah, yeah. Did I send you the book?
I don't. I think you just sent me the website. I'd have to double check their message
Oh,
thread.
I'll send you a digital copy if you want a hard copy. I can send you a hard copy too.
Oh, that's
Um,
sweet. Thank you.
yeah, you'll all these questions have images corresponding to the that like
Okay.
the questions are great, but then the images enhance it. And this happens to be my favorite enhancer because there's like such a deep question, and then there's massive bonfire happening in the forest, which yeah,
Got it. Okay.
appropriate
Yep.
association. Cool. Question 39. What life lesson has yet to be learned?
Ooh, many, most probably, but one life lesson that has yet to be learned is I think it goes back to what I was saying earlier. I think a life lesson that's yet to be learned is how to accept being disliked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Question 40. What community wants you to shine?
Well, that's a fun question. My personal community, for sure. I have close friends who I've been friends with since elementary school, middle school, college. And I definitely always feel like those people want to see me shine. Um, yeah, so I'd say my close community. Um, and then otherwise, I always feel really like when I do shows in like LGBTQ spaces and stuff like that, I always feel super supported on those type of shows. They seem to like my material as well, so that's fun. Um, yeah, maybe I'll sum that up with like saying the artist community as well. I think there's some haters, but in general, there's a everybody just wants everybody to like succeed and be themselves and do their thing, you know?
Yeah. I mean, when comedians generally see you do well, there might be jealousy, but there's also like, wow, that was great, right? Like there's no but yeah,
Yeah, it's kind of to your point about like for us, like there's not a lot that like makes us laugh out loud, like because you're just around jokes all the time. You're not being the fully present audience member either. So yeah, we like it when people are doing good. It's cool to watch people because of just the nature of it in the open mic scene and everything. You see people develop jokes and it go from maybe not being so good to being like, oh, it's actually a really good joke.
you're like, yeah,
So there's definitely some support in that, even though there's this weird competitive hater energy sometimes too.
both of it.
Yep.
Question 41. What will you be thinking about in your last moments of life?
Um, have No clue. My brain's like, well, if I was, I don't know, is somebody pointing a gun at me? What are these last moments? I don't know. But I think like at the end of my life, the things that I would be thinking about is, and I hate to say this, but I have a feeling it will be the cliche like regrets thing, you know, the people that I might have hurt or left behind in a sense, and the I could see there being some visualizing the other paths that could have happened, because that's just how I am as a person now. But I would hope that I'd be the person that's like reflecting on the impact that I had and the wins, and hopefully have loved ones around me that we can share those memories, and that would be the ideal.
Question 42. If you could convince everyone in the world of one thing, what would you convince them of?
Man, one thing to convince the entire world of. Probably because I need to convince myself this, but that there's nothing wrong with you. And there might be some exceptions with like pedophiles or something.
In general, that's right.
But in general, I would say there's nothing wrong with you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that
Question
would.
44. What growth is on the other side of your pain?
Mm, what growth? I think I do believe there is growth on the other side of pain. And I think that like it reflects, it's kind of like the metaphor of like you reap what you sow, you harvest what you sow. So the work and like the like love that you pour into yourself to come through that pain, like that's gonna show in your harvest or your growth on the other side. Because the it's like layers, right? So pain just the thing's gonna come up again and again. And so I think the growth comes from the consistency of working through that and acknowledging it. And so for me, since I'm working specifically through like a breakup and things like that, I think there's just a lot of self love growth for me on the other side of pain right now.
Question 45. How can love be a verb in your life?
So can love be a burden?
Oh,
I'm sorry,
question
I
two.
said that wrong.
Sorry, how can love be a verb?
Oh, a verb. Okay. Um, I think love languages is really popular right now, but love as an action, um, I think can look like a lot of different things. There's acts of service. Um, for me personally, it's keeping my word. Um, that's because that's important to me to receive. So like to me, that's like if I love you, then I'm gonna make this commitment and follow through. So like friends and family members, if I like promise to do something for them, like I have to do this. Like I really make it like I have to do this kind of thing. Um, and then love as a verb. Yeah, I think it's showing the showing and actions like that people you love, but also just like how you carry yourself in the world. And love could just be as simple as opening the door for somebody. Like that's love too.
So that was beautiful.